Hello, I'm Brian Critchell and I'm here today with Gregg McClymont MP, the Shadow Minister for Pensions. Greg, thank you very much for allowing us to come and talk to you today.
My pleasure, Brian.
It perhaps would be a bit unkind to call you the invisible spokesperson on pensions, but Steve Webb and the government are getting all the publicity at the moment. I don't know how you feel about that. You may want to comment, but does this mean that you're generally in support with what they're doing?
I'd say it is rather unkind, Brian, to use the word invisible. Understandably, the government gains a lot of attention because this is the thing about being in opposition. You aren't able to shape events in the way that you would like. And there are things that Steve Webb and the government are doing which we support, but there are also areas in which we think much more could be done, and those are the areas that I am trying to pursue. And generally I like to know what I'm talking about before I start saying too much about it.
Indeed, a lesson for all of us. But shall we focus on the areas where you think that the government should be doing more?
Yes, indeed. Well, I mean, I think the way we have to, pensions are a very broad area. We have three pillars in the system, of course. We have the state pension and the forthcoming reform. We have occupational pensions, and we have private/retail pensions. And with auto-enrolment, it's a very important aspect of two in particular. If we take these pillars in turn, the state pension reform is going to be a very interesting debate, because what we know is the government is committed to moving to a flat rate, single tier state pension. But what we don't know is any of the detail. And very interestingly, George Osborne was precise in his budget statement that the new system would not cost any more in any year than the current system. So we really have to see the detail to understand how that is going to be achieved. That is a pretty tough task the government has set itself. There will be winners, of course, but there will also be losers. But how much they lose and who these losers are precisely isn't clear yet.
Well, defining cost neutral, of course, is going to be tricky. But you say the current system, no more expensive than the current system. Some of us in the industry have interpreted that as meaning including all the liabilities stacked up that would have come in if this government hadn't made a change. And under the previous administration, earnings-related second-tier pension was going to be the way for reinforcing state pensions. But what that would have cost, who knows at this point? So what's your view on that?
That's a very good question about how the government will calculate that. I mean, it seems to me that we have two groups in particular that we have to look closely at what will happen. One is those contracted out into DB schemes at the moment, and the second group is those who are in the second state pension. Those groups, I think we have to look very closely about what the impact will be on them of the move to a flat rate single tier pension, and how quickly the government moves to the flat rate single tier pension is still unclear. So you have some people in the House of Commons, Frank Field is a very prominent voice on this point, saying, well, there's an unfairness here. If people have contributed, that they're going to get less than they have expected given their contributions. And those kind of debates are going to have to be played out in the floor of the House of Commons and the House of Lords.
Right, so watch this space. Can we talk about auto-enrolment?
Of course.
Again, you've been very supportive of that, but auto-enrolment now, some would say, is a pale shadow of where we started with the previous administration's first go at it. Haven't we actually seen a watering down so that the real social impact, which I would have thought was consistent with your approach, has effectively been diluted for years and years to come?
That's a very good question, Brian. Of course, we are supportive of auto-enrolment because it was a Labour idea when in government, which we put the conditions in place for this government to take it forward, which I welcome, the government taking it forward. You're right to say that I was just in a committee talking about the increase in the trigger at which you have to be auto-enrolled automatically, and that's a way in which a significant amount of people are now not going to be auto-enrolled. The Pensions Act meant that 600,000 people who otherwise would have been auto-enrolled and now are outside the earnings threshold for being auto-enrolled. Another 90,000 with the further rise today, which we were discussing. So that's 700,000 people who would have been auto-enrolled under Labour's proposals who are now not auto-enrolled, alongside, as you suggested yourself, Brian, the moving back of the staging dates for auto-enrolment. Not just micro businesses, small and even medium-sized businesses have had their staging dates moved back. So it'll be 2017 before we see auto-enrolment on a comprehensive scale. So yes, I'm very concerned about that, and we didn't think the government did the right thing in pushing the staging dates back or taking people out of the auto-enrolment thresholds. But that being said, auto-enrolment is very important. It will be a very significant reform. For the first time, you will have a mass private pension system, and that is a very important reform, which, since Labour pushed the idea forward, it would be, would be foolish for us not to say yes, get ahead, get going with auto-enrolment.
Yeah, so are you saying half a loaf is better than none?
I mean, yeah, there's something. I mean, I think it's more than half a loaf, but it would be better if the government had kept to the staging dates, had auto-enrolment taking place quicker, and also that as many people as possible were being auto-enrolled. That this was the first hurdle that the government had to go over in a series of hurdles which we face in pensions. It was a bit worrying that they seemed to hit that first hurdle, because there will be other hurdles as well as we go forward. Right. And auto-enrolment in particular, in the Nest context, this is another hurdle, which is, in my view, in the Labour Party's view, the restrictions on Nest have served their purpose. The restrictions on transfers in, and also on the maximum contribution you can make in a year, those restrictions have served their purpose. It's time for them to be removed, so we have a level playing field with the other excellent competitors in the field, such as Now Pensions and B&C. So in that field as well, we have challenges which the government, I think, have to meet.
Well, that's a very interesting point. The Nest themselves, almost since they were set up as a trust corporation, which effectively makes them a private body, and any commercial body is going to have a look at what's good for them. They've been saying, oh, we must, this restriction, we can't cope with this, we need to get rid of it. But isn't that moving still further away from the original social principle that get everybody in, even at small amounts? So what we're going to end up, if we're not careful, is the drift on their part to the better value customers with the bigger amounts to save if they get rid of these caps at the expense of the small people.
That's an interesting point, but I don't think the two are incompatible. We want auto-enrolment to be for as many people as possible, and if it just becomes a saving mechanism for those at the bottom of the income scale, it'll be more difficult to make it successful. So my view is the two are not incompatible, and the restrictions were put in place by Labour government at a time when it was not clear that there would be competition in the auto-enrolment field. The worry was that Nest will have no competitors, and therefore it'll be coming and eating the lunch of some of the bigger insurers and pension providers. But we have competition. We know how successful ATP have been in Denmark. They've come into the auto-enrolment market. We have B&C with a long track record as well. So it seems to me, to get a level playing field now, Nest should be free to compete on a fair basis. And in doing that, you get a healthy auto-enrolment market in which, not just for the very low paid, but also for a broader section of the population are saving in auto-enrolment. And you do raise a very good point, which is about my reflections having come into this job 7 or 8 months ago now, is that the pensions industry has been very successful and done a very good job of servicing quite a high-end market, and people with pretty reasonable incomes and above. We must get better as a country and as an industry at delivering for the middle and lower end of the market, and auto-enrolment's got a huge role to play to that, and Nest now and B&C do as well.
But thank you very much for your time today.
My pleasure, Brian.
As the debate continues and as we see where we're going, I hope you'll allow us to come back and talk to you again.
I'd be delighted.
And give us your updated views.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.